How's it going, everyone? My name is Earlmeister, and in today's video, we are going to be doing a legendary card tier list. That's right, legendary card tier list. Let's get on with it. All right. First, let's discuss the rules. What are the rules, Earl? What are the rules? The rules are, if the card is staple, that's a big plus. Will it survive? Will the deck survive without this legendary card? Will it affect it big time? Is it a game changer? Do you need to build around it, or is it just good on its own? The value of it, if you have it, can you play it in multiple decks, or can you only play it in one deck? And this applies more for the terrible cards. It's gonna be on the D. If they have potential, then they get +1. They can maybe move up to C. All right, this is gonna be for fun, but at the same time, it's somewhat educational because I played the game a lot competitively. I have idea of what are the good legendary cards, right? But take it with a grain of salt because this is my own opinion. If you don't like it, create your own legendary tier list. Anyways, let's get on with this. We're gonna do this reverse with the colors. We're gonna start with steel and get it over with the terrible cards. All right, we're gonna start with Tika. Okay, Tika. Let's see. During your turn, whenever this card banishes another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore. Well, guess what? Aladdin can do that as well. Robin Hood can do that as well. But they are much cheaper to play. And they do more than what Tika can do. So I feel like this is probably the most underwhelming card. We don't really have to talk about this much. I think everyone who plays this game knows how terrible Tika is. So we're just gonna straight up put him on D, or her. Tika's a her, him. I don't know. I'm not gonna assume Tika's sexuality. Okay, we're moving on to Gantu. Okay, Gantu. Everyone wants this card to work, but unfortunately, it's not Gantu's time yet. It's not Gantu's time. If you guys don't know what Gantu does, Gantu, characters with cost 2 or less can't challenge your characters. Now, if Perdita becomes Ultra Megatonic meta and there's a bunch of 2 cost or less cards that you have to deal with, maybe it's still not gonna happen because it's so expensive. It's 8 costs. Yes, it's an inkable. It's 6/6, but when you play it right away, it doesn't really do much. You know, it doesn't help you take the board. It doesn't really do much for you. And if you're trying to play this to come back into a game, most likely they're just gonna ignore your Gantu or whatever else you have on board. And most of the time, you won't have a lot of things on board. So let's just stop talking about Gantu. I know there are Gantu believers there. I'm sorry. Gantu is going to D. Gantu is straight up going to D. Now, Namari. Now, this might sound a little biased. Let's read Namari real quick. So, Namari is a bodyguard. 4 uninkable. 2/4 body. This character can challenge ready characters. So, this card, in my opinion, is the definition of a good legendary card design. Not a good legendary card, but a good legendary card design because no one else does this in the game. Namari is the only one that can attack ready characters without any condition. So no one else does this. Yes, Cinderella can attack ready characters, but you have to sing a song with Cinderella first. But Namari, you don't really need that. You can just do that right away. And she's a bodyguard too, which is cool. An extra addition. But the fact that Namari is an inkable, the fact that Namari is also only a 2/4 body she is reliant on things building around her. She is reliant on a deck that gives a lot of plus to damage in order for her to even remove anything. Because for me, a good body needs to at least have 3 strength. I was about to say willpower. Strength. They need to have at least 3 strength, because a lot of the bodies out there that you can at least take advantage with Namari will have 3 HP or willpower. But I think that this card has potential, so I'm gonna give Namari that +1. This should belong to D. Now, call me biased, but I already said this in the beginning of the intro, that if there's potential, I'm putting them to C. I'm putting Namari to C. All right, now Beast. Beast, on the other hand, sad boy Beast. Beast tragic hero, 5 inkable, 3/5 body, shift 3. At the start of your turn, if this character has no damage, draw a card. Otherwise, he gets a +4 this turn. So this card is probably one of the best legendaries, if not the best legendary in the game right now. Beast, there's just so much value to it. If you're especially against colors that doesn't have pingers, Beast can generate so much card advantage for you, and it's such a big body as well, right? 3/5, and if you decide to damage it and you don't get to finish Beast because you wanted to prevent the draw, he now turns into a 7 strength character, and he can also gain 2 lore. It's just a super solid body, super solid keywords. And another thing is that Beast is not played in one deck. Pretty much every steel deck out there, every steel deck, not all, but almost every steel deck out there can run this. If you buy a Beast right now, the value of it for fun and playability is so high, because you can play multiple decks with this card. And for that, we're putting Beast to S tier. I think everyone knows that Sad Boy Beast is there, and there's a reason why it's so expensive too, right? All right, we're going next to a new card from set 3, Robin Hood. Robin Hood is an ultra megatonic card in my opinion. So Robin Hood is a 5 inkable, 3/6 body, shift 3. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, gain 2 lore. Tika. When this character is banished in a challenge, you may draw a card. And it's a 3/6 body that can quest for 2 lore. I think that this one is just as ultra megatonic as Beast. Almost every steel deck, if not every single steel deck, right, will run this. This is one of the staples right now. It's just a really solid body, right? And the fact that there's also a 1-cost Robin Hood, you can put this out at turn 3 and start taking advantage of a lot of the cards on the board. And the thing is, when it dies through a challenge, if your opponent doesn't have any removals, you can gain a draw as well. It pays for itself. An ultra megatonic body that pays for itself. And for that, because it can also quest for 2 and gain 2 lore if it challenged, which is amazing, we're gonna put it to S. And the thing about Robin Hood as well is, like what I said, if you buy this card right now, if you have this card, it's just like Beast. If you have this card, you can play so many decks with it. And that's why it's going to S. Mickey Mouse, on the other hand, when this is announced, people went cuckoo. They were like, oh my god, that is so OP. But then the competitive players also look like, well, it's a 0/1 body. As long as steel is around, this card is not gonna see a lot of plays. Or if there's no way for you to protect it when you play it, it's not gonna see any plays. It's not gonna see any plays. You could the fun factor of it is super high. It has some potential, but you have to build your deck around it. That's the thing, right? That's a big minus. You have to build the deck around it. You're not gonna play this if your curve is slow. You wanna at least have an ultra megatonic late game curve to get a lot of value from this. Now, you don't have to run 10 million 9 cost cards, 8 cost cards. You can get value from this by playing a 6 cost, 7 cost, right? But it just dies. It's gonna be rare that this card will do anything. If you're playing against colors that doesn't have steel, sure, you can play it. But if you take this on a competitive tournament, the chances of you seeing steel is very high. So it's pretty unplayable. For fun, casual games, it's very playable. And for that, instead of putting it to D, because it has potential and it has a lot of fun factor, we're gonna put it to C alongside Namari. Both of them, you kind of have to build your deck around it, and yeah, it's just not there yet. It's just not there yet. Now, if in the future we get a card that you can play a turn 3 that will protect the card that you play next, then we're talking about something else. All right, next one is the Sapphire Legendaries. We're gonna go to Hades. Hades used to be an ultra megatonic card in set 1 and was still seeing a lot of plays on set 2. Now going to set 3, we're seeing less Hades. I think one of the reasons why we're seeing less Hades is because that Hades is an inkable, first of all. 7 cost inkable. And there are other cards that can basically do what Hades does. A lot of the blue steel players have cut Hades. I actually am not sure if they were running Hades still on set 2, but long story short, Hades used to see a lot of plays, and I still think that the card is playable. I just don't know if it's still amongst the ultra megatonic titans of the game. So Hades is a 7 cost, uninkable, 3/6 body. That's pretty solid. When you play this card, you may put chosen opponent's character into their player's inkwell face down, and then they gain, and then you can gain 2 lore with it. The thing I don't like about Hades, if you play like a blue-red deck, right? A blue-red deck, is this just there's just so many cards that can do his job better than him. The thing is, like, if you banish that, it's not banishing because it goes to their inkwell. If you get rid of their cards, it goes to their inkwell. Now it can help them the next turn. They have an extra ink. That's the thing that I don't like about Hades. And you can't even use it with your own character. Not that there's a lot of reasons why, but you can't use it to like combo with the new Grammatala and all that stuff. But what I'm trying to say here is that usually blue's paired with red, and red just have so many cards that can do Hades' job way better than him. And if you pair blue with steel, there's also a lot of other cards that can do what he does. Well, not exactly remove the opponent from play, but with enough cards you can do what he does. Since there are cards now that removes big bodies, which is along came Zeus, right? It's not always enough, but with the amount of pingers that the steel has, Hades might not be essential anymore in those stacks. But Hades is, in my opinion, still a solid card, very playable. I just don't think that Hades is one of the top cards anymore. There's just so many cards that does his job way better. And for that, we're putting Hades in B. I think that's going to be one of the most controversial ones. I think a lot of people would say, no, Hades is A. But this is my tier list. We're putting him in B. Okay, next one is Bell. This is another card that has seen a lot of plays set 1 and set 2. Belle is a 4 inkable, 2/4 body. During your turn, you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down. While you have 10 or more cards in your inkwell, this character gets +4. It +4 lore, so 5 in total when you're 10 or more inks. The thing about Belle is, she was very playable on set 1 and 2. I think there's just a way bigger card pool now that you don't have to rely on her finishing the game anymore. And she's a body, right? Like during your turn, you may put an additional card from your hand to your inkwell, which is very, very nice. But at the same time, she can be removed afterwards. It's better to just run Fishbone Quill, right? And the thing is, like what I said, there's just so many cards now that considering her in a blue deck is not very cash money, because the game is going so fast. Belle doesn't do anything until turn 10. I mean, you can keep ramping with her, but it's also coming from your hand, right? It's also coming from your hand what you're playing. What you're inking, so you can dry up really fast. If you don't have your draws, she can dry you up really fast. And the thing is, like what I said, she doesn't do much other than that. She can be removed afterwards. Unlike Fishbone Quill, it's gonna be staying there for a while unless people target items specifically, right? And like what I said, she doesn't do anything until the end game. And right now, a lot of these decks that run blue, you have ramp cards already that are pretty staple in the deck, and you want to have cards that actually do something when you play it. When you that makes a difference when you play it right off the bat. And at turn 4, that's pretty late for ramping. You're ramping at turn 2 and turn 3. And then from there, if you're ramping again at turn 4, your opponent is going to build an Ultra Megatonic board against you. And you can argue that, okay, if I'm running Ruby, I'm going to keep ramping and then just be prepared whatever's on the board. Well, you took all those turns doing that. Let's say they played 3 characters or 2 characters, and then they play a location. Your be prepared is getting 2 characters, and your hand is pretty much dry at that point. If you didn't have any, if you don't have any draws, right? So Belle, I think Belle is gonna go to B tier. Definitely not a C tier, right? I think Belle is gonna go to B tier, just like Hades. They are playable. If you have them, you can still play them, but they're not just as impactful like the other cards. Okay, now Sisu. Sisu's a 4 uninkable 2/4 card. Whenever this character quests, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may put 1 into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then Sisu can also quest for 2. Now, again, going back to the idea of this card does not do anything the moment it gets played. And the fact that it's a pretty small body for turn 4, it's a 2/4 body that doesn't do anything, and it's uninkable. That's what makes it so unplayable, in my opinion. If this was a 1/6 or even a 2/5, maybe, just maybe, it might see some play. But again, you play this, it doesn't do anything. It just sits there. And you don't get anything until the next turn. The next turn, you exert it. There's a lot of cards that will kill this. And you only drew 1 card from it, right? I mean, yeah, sure, you got to filter a little bit, but it's just too slow. What it does is just too slow. But the question is, does it have potential? If this was inkable, maybe. It's really tough. It's really tough because I feel like cards like this that can help you filter. And this is not just filter, this is filter and draw. Cards like this might be essential later on in the game, but for now, it's just not there yet. But I don't think it's completely useless, like Gantu and Tika. So maybe, just maybe, Sisu belongs at C. Maybe in between C and D, actually. Maybe in between C and D. I want to put it on D. But it has a little bit of potential. A tiny bit potential. Can I put it somewhere here in the middle? I don't want to add more tiers. It just gets complicated after that. All right, going to Alice next. Alice. I think Alice is one of the cards that we haven't like fully explored in set 3. But I think Alice's potential is getting there. And this is like an example of a great card design, in my opinion, as well. Now, this card doesn't necessarily requires you to build around her. Sure, you can build around her, but I think that there's enough decks that has good strength on them that Alice can be really playable. So Alice, if you guys don't know what Alice is she's a 3-cost, 1/4 body. Can quest for 1. Your other characters gain support, which is really, really cool. While this character has 10 or more strength, she gets +4 lore. Now, 5 lore is a lot. 5 lore is a lot, and the fact that she's inkable and she only costs 3 to play, I think that's pretty ultra megatonic. I like that a lot. But the problem right now is, what would you pair this color with, right? I mean, there a lot of people thinks of green when they see this because of like pain and panic and all that. But I think we're tunnel visioning into that idea. But hey, if you have a deck like that that works, that would be cool. But the thing about Alice as well is she can be really good on this meta. I mean, just hear me out really quick. Locations are ultra megatonic at the moment, right? Locations are ultra megatonic, and the thing is, like, if all your characters have support, you can punish locations easily with that, because you can combine everyone's strength. You don't necessarily have to tunnel vision into, while this character has 10 or more strength, right? We don't have to tunnel vision into that. And the thing about Alice, she's a pretty solid body. She's 1/4. She's 1/4, and if your characters have support, they can buff Alice, and Alice can do some trading at worst, right? But yeah, I think this card has a lot of potential. I don't want to put it on C because I see so much potential on this, but then again, I'm just being biased if I put it on B, right? If I put it amongst Hades and Bell, because those are actually playable cards. We don't know if Alice is playable yet. There's just a lot of potential, and this is probably one of the cards that I'm gonna experiment with this set 3. So I'm gonna put Alice first in C for now. Potentially Alice can be B or A if someone can figure her out, in my opinion. The next one, Lucky Dime. You know when they say be careful what you wish for? This is the greatest example of that. We all wanted, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we get a legendary item or a song or an action? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ravensburger have given us a legendary item, and it's a Pooper Swans. It's a 7 uninkable item, Lucky Dime. You spend 2 ink, choose a character of yours, and gain lore equal to their lore. To the lore that they can gain. Okay, this card... This card is one of those cards that you have to build your whole deck around it. That's one of the biggest downfall of it, right? That's one of the biggest downfall of it. If there is a really good item and slash Loringsman stack, then this could be actually really good. But there is a world where you like Lucky Dime, Magica, Scrooge McDuck, you know, all that stuff that you can do combo with. But in a competitive level, it's just not gonna happen. You're gonna get annihilated before that even happen. It's too slow, first of all, and it's very super ultra megatonic specific deck that you have to build with it. Does it have potential? Kind of. Not as strong as the potential of these cards right here. And for that, we're gonna put Lucky Dime on D. Lucky Dime goes to D. Okay, next one. Let's move on. Let's move on from Lucky Dime. I got 4 Lucky Dimes. I don't want them. Anyone wants to trade their Robin Hoods on Kita for it, and Ursula? I'm just kidding. All right, Grammatala. Grammatala, 7 inkable, 4/8 body, shift 5. Whenever a card is put into your inkwell, gain 1 lore, and it can quest for 2. I think this card has a lot of potential. A lot of potential. Now, this card is not seeing a lot of play right now because it can be very slow as well. You have to survive turn 1 to 7 and be in a good spot. So when Grammatala comes out, you can actually do a lot with it. That's the thing. It's like, yes, it's a great body. It can quest for 2 as well, which is pretty solid if you look at it. But it turns 7, you can shift it at 5. You know, I think it's just super slow. I think it's just super slow, but has a lot of potential. And I think that potential might be discovered sooner than later. But for now, we're gonna put Grammatala on C. I'm gonna put Grammatala in C. Now, next one. The BLT. The Brave Little Tailor, Mickey Mouse. 8 inkable, 5/5 body that can quest for 4 and evasive. Now, I think this card, if you're playing against someone with a starter deck, this card will annihilate them. But I think in a competitive level, at 8 costs, at that late in the game, it's so risky to play something that doesn't do anything right off the bat. That's the biggest downfall of it, is that it's evasive, solid body, 5/5, 4 lore that it can gain, right? And it's inkable, which is cool. But the fact that it doesn't really do anything at 8 costs, it's just so underwhelming. Most cards that are being played that are around 6, 7, 8, 9, they actually do something right off the bat when they are played. If you play this at 8 and you're playing against a meta deck, you're playing against what do you call this? Ruby Amethyst. Ruby Amethyst is gonna Tremaine you. Dead. It's gonna play a dragon. Dead, right? I think that's one of its biggest downfall. I think though that this card, unlike Gantu and Tika, can be splashed. You can have 1 of it, maybe 2 at the most. I wouldn't do 2. I probably would do 1. Maybe you can have an element of surprise when it comes to it, but other than that, I want to put it in between C or D. It's definitely not C with ultra megatonic potentials. It's definitely not D. I think it's between D and C, but I think it's weighing more towards C. All right, next stop, we have Maleficent Dragon. Maleficent Dragon has been an ultra megatonic card since set 1. Now, the thing about Maleficent Dragon is it's slowing down. But it's still there. You can definitely play this card in multiple decks. You can play it. It's being run in Ruby Amethyst still. I did cut 2 of them from my Ruby Amethyst. I'm only running 2 now. And you can run this on Sapphire Ruby as well. You can run this on Ruby Fossa as well. You can run this in many different decks. And it's super solid when you play it. You remove something right away. It's a 9 cost inkable, 7/5 body. When you play this character, you may banish a chosen character and it can quest for 2. This card is just super solid, and I think by looking at it, you can already see what it does. You can choose whoever you want, and unless they have Ward. You can annihilate them away from the board, and then it's a super solid body that's left out there. It's 7/5. It can quest for 2, and it's very playable. I think this is one of those cards where if you get this card, you're like, okay, that's nice. I can play multiple decks. Just like the Beast, just like Robin Hood, Maleficent Dragon is going to S tier. Next one, we have Scar, Vicious Cheater. Scar is a 7 uninkable 6/5 body that can quest for 2. It has Rush, and this is the cool thing about Scar. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready this character. He can't quest for the rest of the turn. The cool thing about Scar that I like is that he's got Rush right away. Now it's very specific, not decks, but it's very specific targets of decks that you play against, that you play this. If a meta goes to a certain way, then you play Scar. Other than that, Scar can be a bit underwhelming and scary to add in your deck with the fact that it's a 7 cost, uninkable. That's the thing, that's the scariest thing. He's almost like be prepared if everything is exerted against your opponent's board. But right now, on this current meta, it's just not there yet. It's just not there. I've seen some plays on set 2. I've seen decks that actually won with this and did well on tournaments, but they usually are not on the top 8 or top 16 even. They do decent. They would beat some opponents, but it's very specific opponents that you can beat with this. And for that, I'm gonna put Scar. This is tough. I want to put it in between C or B. Next time I do this, I'm gonna put more tier list, right? I want to put it more in C and B, but I think Scar belongs to C, in my opinion at least. The next one, the card that I really wanted to work. This card, Donald Duck, not again, 5 inkable, 1/5 body, evasive. This card gets +1 lore for each 1 damage on him. I think that self-ping decks are gonna be a thing in the future, and there's a lot of potential for it, but its time is just not now. Its time is not just now. It has potential, but unlike these potentials over here, you can't find that potential yet. And as much as I want to put it on C, we're gonna put this one on D. I don't want to be biased just because I like it, right? I mean, I could. This is my tier list. I'm putting it on A. No, I'm just kidding. I'm putting it on D because it's just not there yet. It's just not there yet. In the future, this could be a very scary card because it's evasive and it's 1/5. If there's a ping and heal deck, this would definitely do a lot of work. But for now, it's not just there. I mean, it's not there yet. Now, Jim Hawkins, Space Traveler, 5 inkable. One of my favorite art and my favorite card in the new set. 4/4. When you play this character, you may play a location with 4 costs of 4 or less, would cost 4 or less for free. Whenever you play a location, this character may move there for free, and it can cost for 2. Now, Jim Hawkins has a lot of potential, and you don't necessarily have to build your deck around it, because if you have 4, 6, 8 locations that are good, Jim Hawkins is already playable. Now, the thing about Jim Hawkins is just locations are new, so the value of Jim Hawkins is not as high as I want it to be because there's still a lot of locations missing, right? But for now, I think Jim is a solid card. Not quite on S yet, but definitely an A tier card. That's where I'm gonna put Jim. He just gains so much value when you play it. 5 cost cards that you basically spending 9 cost with it if you get RLS or McDuck Manor or the Queen's Castle, of course. But other than that, Jim is at A. Yes, you can play him in a couple few decks, but it's just not as solid and good as these ones. Next one, we have the Hydra. The Hydra is a 6 uninkable Hydra Deadly Serpent, 6/5 body. Watch the teeth. Whenever this character is dealt damage, deal that much damage to chosen opposing character, and it quests for 2. I think this card has a lot of potential, and it's not like an unplayable card like these ones, or has potential like these. I think the potential goes much higher. It's definitely between B and C. I really don't want to put this on B. I know for sure that eventually this will be a good splash for some deck. 1-ofs or 2-ofs. And for that, we're gonna give it a B rating. That might be wrong, that might be biased, but like I said, I want it to be around B and C. It's not as bad as these, but it's not as good as these. But the good on it definitely weighs higher than the bad. So I'm putting it on B. I'm putting that on B. The next one is John Silver. John Silver is a 6 inkable 5/5 body that can quest for 2 when you play this card, and whenever he quests, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. Now, this card has potential. It's playable, but it's not as good as these. It's not as bad as these either, but it weighs more on the C side than it does on the B side. This card definitely is not the like ultra megatonic unplayable. This card is definitely playable. It's just not a very good playable card, in my opinion. There's not much to say with it. You give Reckless to certain opponents, and what are you really like? What deck are you really targeting if you really want to run this, right? The next one is Beast. Beast 5 uninkable 4/4 body quest for 2. Rush. When you play this card, exert all opposing damage characters. I think this one has a lot of potential. It's not seeing a lot of plays right now because of its uninkable. That's the thing that's preventing it from uninkable. This one, unlike the Hydra and this, that they lie around B and C. This one lies around C and D. But the fact that it's uninkable, it goes down to D for sure. At turn 5, there are way more cards that you want to run over this that can make bigger impact than the Beast. And the fact that it's uninkable is just sad times. Next one, move right away. Not this card. This card was my chase on set 2 when it started. I thought this card was going to be great. And then I started testing a lot of games with it, and then I realized every time I get to the point where I can finally play Bell, I choose something else to play because there was much better plays. And with Steel being everywhere, these type of characters, it's just too much of a risk. If this was inkable, I would definitely play a couple of these, maybe 4 on specific decks. But the fact that it's an inkable and there's not a lot of target to shift it, you have Morph now. But now if you run Morph and you run it with Steel, there's just so many other better cards that you can play that is inkable, by the way, that it just does more than Bow. When you first read this, it's 5 uninkable, 3/3 body that can quest for 3. Whenever shift 3, whenever this character is challenged, the challenging characters a player discards all cards in their hands, right? Now that sounds so OP. You mean to say if I attack this, I would lose all my cards in my hand? That sounds OP. But the thing is, they would probably just ignore it, or they would empty their hand then attack it, or remove it because they have all the tools to remove it. That's basically a sad times for it. It has potential. It has potential. It's lying between D and C for sure. As much as I love this card, I love the art. I have a crush on Bell. I love the art. I have to put it on D. it just belongs there right now. We don't know in the future if there's a place or there's a world where we can play Belle, but it's not right now. All right, the next one though, the next one is Beast Relentless. Beast Relentless, this card is a 6 inkable 4/5 body that can quest for 2. Whenever an opposing character is damaged, you may ready this character. Now this card has not just potential, but it has a lot of playability. Now, do I want to run 4 on this? If I run 4 on it, then I would build my deck around it. I probably would run 2 or 3. And a lot of meta decks are doing that right now, where they make a green steel deck and they would run like 2 or 3 of this, or 1 on some list. But I think this card is pretty solid. I think this card has way more than just potential. And I think it's in between A and B, but I think its playability is much higher than the cards down here. So I'm gonna put this one to A. I think this beast has moved up to A. Now, if we were talking about set 2 version of it, set 2 time for it, I think it was definitely in between B or C. But it has moved up, in my opinion. All right, let's move to the next one. The new Ultra Megatonic Set 3 Legendary for Emerald. Now, this one entered with a bang. There was a lot of people playing this on tournaments and LGS, people who can afford it and people who have pulled a bunch of it. This card is pretty solid. Whenever this card sings a song, you may play that song again from your discard for free, then put it on the bottom of your deck. It's a 3 cost, right? 3 cost inkable, 2/3 body, and it can quest for 1. Now, we don't care about the 2/3 body. We don't care about the questing. Its keyword is what makes it Ultra Megatonic. I think this card can be played in a few different decks. Right now, its most famous one where it's seeing a lot of success is Amethyst and Emerald, but there's a lot of fun playing it with yellow as well. There's a lot of fun playing it with steel as well, like purple Emerald and Steel Emerald are both running this right now, and it's just way too solid. Singing Let the Storm Rage On twice, singing Strength of the Raging Fire twice, singing Friends on the other side twice, Mother Knows Best twice. It's just so good and so much value. And this one goes to S because of that. Its playability, its stapleness on specific decks, on a couple of decks, not specific, then that's not staple. Or on a few decks, just makes it really solid and good. And I think Ursula definitely deserves to be S. And if you don't want to put it on S, it's definitely in between A and S. It's not on A, it's in between A and S or S. Solid S. It's a great addition to the set. Now the next one, this is another card that looks scary. 7 uninkable, that's the thing that doesn't make it look scary. 4/4, shift 4, can quest for 3. When this card is banished, return all opposing characters to their player's hand. The thing about this card is it's uninkable, and they can literally just play around this as well, right? Most of the time, by the time you play this, they would have a few cards in the board already, and they can just remove it and then play after they remove it, right? That's the thing. Although this card has potential. It has a lot of potential. It's not quite there on B yet, but it's definitely not a D. It has potential, and for that, we're gonna put it on C. All right, moving on to the next one, Ursula. Ursula used to be very playable on set 1 and set 2, but I think Ursula's time has went away. The meta right now is just super fast. It's just really fast that playing a 7 uninkable is super scary. Playing a 7 uninkable can easily brick your hand. But we're going to discuss it anyways. It's a 7 uninkable Ursula 2/8 body that can quest for 3. When you play this character, each opponent loses 1 lore. You may draw a card for each 1 lore lost this way. Multiplayer, I think this card is going to be really great. But we're talking about 1v1 here. I think Ursula is not there anymore. In my opinion, Ursula is just not there anymore. You play this card at turn 7. Your opponent is gonna annihilate it with multiple bodies the following turn, or Madame Medusa will just kill it. Madame Medusa, or I'm just gonna call her Madame Tremaine. Let's just make them both Madame. Lady Tremaine will just kill this when you play this on turn 7, and the following turn it dies. It won't see any play, and even if it does, you know, I'm just not so sure. I don't think that it's a C. I don't think it's an A either. It's definitely a solid B. That's where we're gonna put Ursula. It's still playable, but it's not there anymore. Okay, the next one is Elsa. Elsa, when you play this character, exert up to 2 chosen characters they can't ready at the start of their next turn. Shift 6. Elsa is an 8 uninkable 4/6 body that can quest for 3. Now, I think this one is a difficult one to put anywhere. I think that Elsa still has potential, but it's not the potential of the C's. We can definitely put it on B, but I don't think its playability is lower than B. I think it's in between A and B, but now I think it's leaning towards more B. It's just super slow. It's just a super slow card because like you don't get to play this until turn 8. You don't get to play this until turn 8, and the fact that it's uninkable, it's just super slow. Now, Maleficent Dragon is 9. But the thing about Maleficent Dragon, even though she's slow, she's inkable, you know? If you draw multiple Elsas, it's gonna get stuck in your hands, and that's probably the reason why you will lose. You have less choices, and it doesn't see place until 10 million years after the game started. So we're gonna put Elsa not on A. I think it's in between A or B, but it weighs heavier on B. Now the next one, Madame Mim Purple Dragon. Now this one is a pretty interesting card, but it's also one of those cards that's not there yet. 7 inkable 5/7 4 lore body. It's evasive, but the thing is, when you play this character, banish her or return another 2 chosen characters of yours to your hand. By turn 7, if you do have bodies in the board, it's most likely 2 Ultra Megatonic bodies. And you don't really want to return them, right? You don't really want to return them. It's value if you return a couple of 1-cost, 2-cost characters with this. But the fact that it's not played till turn 7 and it's not shiftable, I think that's one of its biggest downfall. It's just not there. It's not there yet. I'm not sure if it will ever be there. And this has potential, but it's around C or D, but it's weighing more on the D side, right? It's weighing more on the D side. Now the next one is Fairy Godmother, 5 inkable 3/4 body that can quest for 2, shift 2. Whenever this character quests, your characters gain Challenger +3, and when this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand this turn. When you first read it, it sounds so ultra megatonic, but it's one of those cards that you realize when you play it, you most likely will ink it, or it just plays really slow. It's forcing you. This card is forcing you to run other Fairy Godmothers to make it playable, because when you play this at turn 5, it's gonna get removed at the start of turn 6 by Medusa or other cards. And also you need to have a good board to do this. So once you have a good board, you have to take a turn to slow down to get even an ultra megatonic board after that, and that's only if you have targets with it. It's very conditional. You have to almost, or most likely will build your deck around it. I'm just not sure if it's there yet. It's one of those cards that is in between C or D. And I think this one is in a solid in between C or D. It's hard to put on C, it's hard to put on D. But it's not as unplayable as these. So we're gonna put this one on C. We're gonna put this legendary on C. It's playable, but unlike these, it's unplayable, but it's not as good as these other cards over here, in my opinion, at least. But it's definitely there. If you don't have any other cards, you know, and you have this, you probably would run it. The next one is a new card from set 3. It's Maleficent, Mistress of All Evil, 2/3 body, can quest for 2, 5 inkable. Whenever this character quests, you may draw a card. During your turn, when you draw a card, you may move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Okay, so this card is just too small and too slow. Now, if this card says whenever this character is played and whenever it quests, it might be a whole different story, but it's just too slow. You play this, there's so many things that will remove this, right? And the pinger is also pretty conditional. You need to have things in the board that's damage in order for you to actually do something with Maleficent, Mistress of All Evil. And for that, I think it's somewhat playable, but unplayable at the same time, in my opinion. It's just too slow and it doesn't really do much. It doesn't do much. This is definitely in between C or D. But because of it's just not there yet and it's so underwhelming, I'm gonna be putting this on D, unfortunately. Now the next one though, a new card from set 3, Jafar. I think this card is really good, but do I think that it's ultra megatonic, that it's gonna join the S club? I don't think so. I don't think it's on the S club tier. The thing about Jafar is if you want to get the most out of him, you have to build your deck around him. But he is very playable in a really good mid-range control deck with steel and purple. You add Jafar there, he is a pretty solid card in that deck. He's not the star of the deck, but he is very playable and can be there. But the thing is too, that's the only deck right now that you can really see a lot of plays with it. This card is just super underwhelming without cards like a whole new world, right? That's the most that you can get out of Jafar. You can get a whole new world with Jafar. It's really, really scary. But the fact that it's only played in one deck right now is the reason. And if you wanted to get the most out of it, you have to build the whole deck around it. But it can fit on. It's a pretty solid card on a good deck. And for that, we're gonna put it Jafar into the A tier. Now the next one, this was one of my favorite cards on set 1. It's slowly but surely falling off, but at the same time, it's hanging in there. It's still playable. This card is a 7 cost inkable 4/8 body that can quest for 2. When you play this character, if you have 2 or more other characters in play, you may draw 2 cards. This is a pretty solid card in my opinion. But is it ultra megatonic? I don't think it's ultra megatonic. This used to see a lot of plays on set 1. Set 2, it started falling off. Set 3, it's still seeing some plays. There are some decks that you can play with it. I think this one is in between A and B. But I'm gonna be biased here, okay? And take that with a grain of salt. I believe that this is not as bad as the B cards. And I think it's a little better than them. that I'm gonna put this on A. It's not as good as Jafar. Jafar is in between S and A. It's not as good as James. It's between S and A. This is a solid A card. I think Stitch is in between A and B. But I think the A is weighing a little more heavy. So we're gonna put Stitch in A. Now the next one is Rapunzel. I think this card is ultra megatonic. I think this one is really hard to put because it's not the biggest like game changer, and some decks has cut this that runs what do you call this, that run Amber with steel. But I think I really want to put this in between S and A. I think that the solid spot is right here. But I'm gonna put this on S just because it's still being run in pretty much every single Amber deck. Minus the aggro decks. Mid-grow decks, yes. Mid-range decks, yes. But yeah, this one is a tough one. I'm gonna admit. If you guys don't know what Rapunzel does, Rapunzel is a 1/5 body that can quest for 2. When you play this character, remove up to 3 damage from one of your characters. Draw a card for each 1 damage removed this way. And it's 4 inkable. I think I'm going to put this one to S for sure. I still have a lot of love for Rapunzel. I still play Rapunzel in pretty much every single Amber deck that I play unless I'm playing hyper aggro. I think that Rapunzel is still pretty solid. I think definitely a solid S for Rapunzel. Now the next one, moving on. Snow White, Well-Wisher, 3/5 body that can quest for 2, shift 4. Whenever this character quests, you may return a character card from your discard to your hand. 6 uninkable. If this was inkable, I think this card would be good. But the fact that it's uninkable and it's a turn 6, you know, it's just too slow. It's just too slow. And before it's seeing some plays with the Mufasa decks, but now there's just other better cards. Like, whatchamacallit, Perdita is a better version of this, right? Perdita can almost do what she does, but she does it way better than her because she can bring it back right away. Now it's Perdita is limited to 2 costs or lower, but Snow White is just too slow. I think before the potential of it weighs more towards C. But I think now that potential is gone because there's way more better cards than her at turn 6 that is inkable, or even if they're uninkable, they can still do better than Snow White. So we're gonna put Snow White on D. Mufasa, on the other hand, now this is one of the cards that when set 3 came out, and I was still streaming a lot at that time, people keep asking me why I'm playing Mufasa. And I think Mufasa is super solid. I think Mufasa can be played in two ways. One is a mid-range Mufasa where you get a lot of value when Mufasa dies and it brings a bigger dudes. I play Mufasa in some of my aggro decks. I think Mufasa is a great finisher in a way where I'm trying to finish at turn 5, turn 6, so that at turn 5, if my Mufasa die, or at turn 6 if my Mufasa died, most likely another card will be there, and most likely my opponent won't have any tools to remove that. So that's one of the reasons why I play Mufasa, and I won a lot of games with Mufasa through that. But right now, let's talk about the meta right now. Mufasa is actually better than ever. Green Fasa is still being played. Ruby Fasa is even better. It got a top 2 placement in an Ultra Megatonic tournament it was like a week ago from this the time of this recording. So Mufasa is definitely between S and A. It's definitely between S and A, but I think it's weighing more towards A. Now, its playability is really good. And also, the amount of decks that you can run this with is really, really good as well. And it's almost like a staple in a lot of those decks. But it's not as strong as these, in my opinion. I definitely want to put it in the middle. I definitely want to put it in the middle. I think this card is definitely better than these right now. I think Jafar, Mufasa, and this could be at the middle, but I'm gonna put it on A. I don't think it's as ultra megatonic as these cards up here. Now the next one is we have Perdita. Perdita, I think the fun factor with Perdita is so high. I've been playing some Perdita decks lately, and I enjoy Perdita a lot. And I don't want to be biased. I want to put it on A, but that's just me being super biased. I think Perdita is a solid B. If you guys don't know what Perdita does, Perdita is a devoted mother. Is what Perdita is. Perdita is a 6 uninkable 1/6 that can quest for 2. When you play this character and whenever she quests, you may play a character with cost 2 or less from your discard for free. It's really, really good. I play this with my Ruby deck, and the thing about Perdita on a Ruby deck is there's a lot of really, really cool interactions that you can do. I play it with Lucky too. And what I do is I would play Perdita, bring back my LaFoe after the Lucky is exerted to draw, and then the LaFoe will trigger the Lucky again, and then the Lucky will draw more cards for me, and it's just Ultra Megatonic Fiesta because there's so many 2-ink characters that I have. But I don't think it's an Ultra Megatonic card that can join the A ranks right now. Everyone's still trying to figure out how good Perdita is. It's just not A right now. I think it's a solid, super solid B card. Now the next one, I already know where this is. I'm gonna be putting this on A. So let's talk about Kita really quick. I think Kita is a solid A. Kita is a 5 inkable 3/5 body shift 3 that has 2 lore. When you play this character, all characters get -3 until the start of your turn. Kita is one of the ultra megatonic savior of of aggro right now. But the thing is, she's also played in mid-range decks. There are some decks, there are some Steel Song that's also playing this, and there are other Ember decks that's also playing Kita. But for me, Kita shines the best when it comes to aggro or mid-grow. That's where I would play her the most. And I play Kita a lot with my aggro decks, and it's just so good. Especially if you're not playing against Steel. If you play against Steel, then you can bear necessities, the grab your swords. What I do with it is I build a board and I don't swing or quest until it's safe. And then Kita comes into turn 3 or turn 5 or turn 4. And when Kita does come during those turns, you just quest so many times with all of your characters and they're going to be safe. Unless your opponent has rush, they can't really do anything. They can't remove your characters the next following turn. And then the next following turn, you just quest again and you're most likely going to be around 16 to 20 already. And I think for that, I'm putting Kita in a solid A. At worst, Kita would be between A and B, but the A is definitely much heavier, but I don't think it's in between A and B. A lot of people, or some people, might think that, but I'm putting Kita at a solid A. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching this. This is our tier list for legendary cards. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this is my opinion based on my knowledge with the meta, based on my own opinions as well. So take it with a grain of salt. This is not the concrete tier list out there. This is Earlmeister's meta tier list for cards. We're going to be doing a deck tier list pretty soon, so if you guys want to check that out too, make sure to hit that, smash that like, subscribe, and bell button, and don't forget to comment down below your thoughts. If you have your own meta tier list, let me know. If there are some cards you disagree with, that's totally fine. Let me know. what you think should be here or there. What's S, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P? You know, let me know on the comments down below, or just leave an emoji because it helps. Other than that, I will see you guys on the next video. Have a great day. I hope you guys are enjoying set 3 as much as I do. Peace.